All right, hello everyone. Doug here with the LincolnList.com and welcome to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings. This is for the week of the 18th of November. As always, I'll do my very best to take a grope in the murkiness here, try to make some sense out of this market, and try to provide you with some quality trade setups. For those of you out there that need a little bit of help with your trading, I'm going to post a link on the screen that takes you directly to our live trade room. Feel free to trade with us any day you so desire. So we begin with the SPY as always. And honestly, guys, the tempo hasn't changed over the last month. Since the beginning parts, I'd say the second week of October here, on the 10th and the 11th, this thing broke through the 10 moving average. It's touched it just a few times, gave it a slight little, one of those little peck kisses, like, and that was it. It's not even sunk below that. And every other day, it just continues to make another all-time high. And it is right now, it is laughing in the face of any sort of negative sentiment out there. You got impeachment news, all-time highs. You wonder about the Fed, all-time highs. You got trade war, all-time highs. You got stagnant growth or lowering growth or possible recessions in 2020, all-time highs. Nothing right now is stopping this market. And every single dip gets bought with aggression. I mean, they don't even last 10 to 15 minutes. Like, this was the biggest selling you see these days, is like 15, 20 minutes. And not only does the selling just stop, but the end result, like we talked about last December, is every time you get a pullback in this market, the end result isn't just some base or some consolidation. The end result is it just makes another all-time high. It just makes another all-time high. Now, I have no idea when something like this is going to stop. It can continue to do this until whenever it feels like it doesn't want to do that anymore. As I said before in a lot of these market mutterings, the market will always go as high as it needs to go to turn off investors, and it goes low as it needs to go to attract investors. So obviously, investors, traders, algos, whatever you want to call this here, they're still attracted. They're still chasing these. They're still paying these prices. They're still up buying for these things. And as long as that continues, and as long as that big money flows in, whether it's buybacks or whatever it might be, it's going to continue. I would just continue to look at each whole number as we progress and pay attention to those dips. Now let's switch to the bear camp over here, or for any of those that are out there that are looking for what is it going to take to knock this thing down? I don't know. But if something like that's going to happen, the first thing you got to do is get rid of the 10 moving average. We haven't, like I said, we haven't got below that in over a month now of trading. And right now that stands at 308.50 area. So that's 308.50. I mean, if you get under 308.50, you get a close under there. Maybe we test the 20. Maybe we break this support down here of 307. But if you're looking for something that's sustainable to the downside, how you will recognize that is when these dips stop getting bought, because every single dip, the dip buyers rush into this, pick it up, and there it goes. You make another all-time high. When that stops and they start to get smoked, or that doesn't work anymore, then you'll see something a little bit more impactful. But until that happens, it can happen at any minute. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's the stock market. It does whatever the hell it wants to do. But until that happens, you're not going to see anything of substance. We're going to be in this continual melt up by the dip, floating into outer space, going to the moon market. And that's just the way it is. Got to deal with it. So that's my take on the market. We shall see. Now let's look at a couple of different stocks. I'll give you some longs, and I'll throw a couple of shorts in there just for emergency purposes. Yeah, I'm still thinking about shorts. Haven't taken a short in a while. Would love to do some shorting. You know, I'm going to like shorters rehab right now. I just want to short so damn bad. But haven't done it. It just hasn't called for that right now, or I haven't seen the right types of setups. I want to go back and talk about something I was talking about a few weeks ago, which is RH, Restoration Hardware. This is like the little baby LULU, which we were talking about over the last couple of weeks. This thing is coming off a pretty big gap up and a big run. I don't necessarily like to buy stocks after they closed up $13 on one day. That's just not how I roll. I'm always looking for value. I'm looking for things that can come back into averages or numbers that I'm okay with, where I feel like I can grab the maximum amount of alpha out of something rather than chasing shit at high a day. But what we have seen religiously in this market is that when stocks break all-time highs on daily time frames, they're relentless. It's like algos must be sitting up there just ready to stuff these things into infinity. And you got a high up here on the 28th. I'm reading 192, and you're sitting at 190. And I would say, just statistically, based on how things have been working in the market, that it's going to go to 192. It's like once they get a sniff of that, they just run right. It's like Seabiscuit running right into those highs. And then maybe it goes through. It's got some big range. I wouldn't buy it first thing on a Monday morning, but I would look for any sort of pullback, basing, something very similar to what you saw here intraday on the top part of my screen here Friday, where you've got some basing. It's already washed out. The emotions come out of the market. And then you start to see a little bit of a grind up. I'd look for something like that, but watch RH if it takes up those highs. Now, I'm also looking for some of these things here that are down here on the bottoms. They're still, even though the markets are making high, one of the things that I said in the happy hour, I believe it was this happy hour, is that I bet if you look at your watch list, about 80% of those stocks are not at all-time highs. They've actually pulled back significant, like we saw Netflix, Facebook, a couple of these other, sorry, my mind's freezing out, ULTA, Roku, even after Roku's big run, it's still off of its highs. But this ULTA's been sitting down here since its last earnings. It's just been going sideways for about 2 to 3 months. But this pattern's starting to get a lot tighter. So if you look back here, you had this initial run up coming out of range where you got this pretty big move going from about 235 up to like 260s and some change. It gave it all back, but it held its support. And now you're starting to see that just come up out of the range here. I'm going to be looking at 247. 247, we're sitting at 246 right now. If you get above 247, you start to see a little more volume come in there. You might get one of these shorter term swing where this thing puts in $20 or $30 of a run up. It's doing a good job holding its base, but it's also doing a crappy job of building on that base. So at some point, as with all stocks, it's in this tight range. One of them are going to go. It's either going to break to the upside and get fierce, or it's going to break to the downside and start sniffing out new prices on the way down. Looks like this thing wants to make a break. Just pay attention to it. Wouldn't buy it on the first cross through. It's not been honorable enough to do that with this stock, but just watch it and see what happens. Now, I did mention FB. Same thing. It's sitting down here. This is not the cleanest of charts that I've seen, but it's still spending more time towards the 196s and the 195s in that area than it is down in the bottom of this range. It's held its 20 moving average pretty good. And you got a nice little flag here, a very short-term one at that. But it looks like it at least wants to trade back up to previous resistance of 197. For you traders out there, there's some alpha there that you can pick up. There's some money there for a trade. But for the swing traders out there, that might be something that if it can ultimately clear 197, it should make quick work and go straight to 200, I would think, and then possibly start working its way back up to the highs, which is 207. Again, maybe this becomes market dependent as well. This hasn't been participating in the market, neither has ULTA. But these things might be due. Money always cycles through, and at some point people are going to get tired of chasing Apple at super high prices and want to get some value, which we'll talk about Apple here in just a second. But I kind of like that one there. And another one that might be coming off the bottom would be Wayfair. You got a same thing, an awful lot of consolidation down here, awful lot of attempts to try to get this thing under 80 with no success. Had a pretty good Friday, but then when you get the market up double, triple digits like that, these things happen. This, I think, needs a range break. $87 needs 87, and it's sitting at 83 right now, so there could be some trades in between that. But just put some alerts on these ones coming out of the bottom. I don't know if necessarily they're the best places to put your money long on the first cross, but some of these are sitting down here. They've been sitting down here for a while. The money hasn't recognized it yet, but at some point they will. That's why they're consolidating, and they should break these ranges and start to put in some consecutive day runs and provide multiple days of opportunities. So for those coming off the bottom or coming out of certain range, I've got ULTA, Facebook, and Wayfair. RH is already sitting up there at highs, so that's a little bit different scenario, but watch those. I gave you the numbers. Now I want to take a look at possibly some shorts, and I feel evil for saying this because I don't know what to say. I mean, at some point, those skill sets I have at being an awesome short seller will come back. I'll get a chance to do that again. It's like a long lost lover that has left you from high school and has never returned until your 20th reunion or something like. It's just like, Jesus, my God. But anyway, I talked about Apple over the last couple of weeks. I never shorted it for a day trade. I bought some puts far dated out for next year, but man, what do you say about this one? It's probably the reason the market's going up so much. I mean, the same thing here. since the 4th of October, this thing has barely had one day. It got underneath of its 10 moving average for like 10 minutes, and it's high. And it's not gonna, man, oh God, this thing is just motoring. It's like a little tiny, looks like Roku and Shop when they were in those early portions of the pattern. Now, again, I love this stock. I've had it for a long time in retirement accounts. But, you know, as a day trader, as a money trader, you got to be looking at this. At some point, as I said, money will rotate out of this. I haven't seen that yet. It hasn't come. I mean, even Buffett sold a little bit of his share. So if he's getting antsy up here, then I don't know. Just watch it. I don't have any answers for you here on this one. I'll know it when it happens. But right now, as it stands, it hasn't been ready. But maybe that changes. At some point it will. Money will pull out of this and go into other names. And there'll be an opportunity here, and it's worth taking a look at, because I think just a small pullback, the smallest of pullback, wouldn't even make the daily chart bearish, would take you to 252. And that's like $15, $20 away, so there's definitely some money there. And then LULU here, I talked about this over the last 2 weeks. I was long this. I liked this. I was trading this stock long. But now I think just like this is what you might see with RH, breaking that range. But same thing. I mean, once it took off from the 50 moving average here, you go 196 to 215. And I mean, look at the last few days of this, just stretching. I mean, there's no question there's FOMO here. There's no question it's chasing. If you're a technical analysis trader and you're buying things on technical analysis, you don't have a reason here on the daily. There's no technical setup here. This is just chase-a-mania. That's all it is. You know, maybe chase-a-mania works, but that's what this is. It's a chase. Now, on all of these stocks, especially the bull ones, let me just make a comment here about LULU and Apple, since I have them up. There's a couple other ones that look like that. Anytime these things sneak in a flush, like LULU did, first thing in the morning on Friday, or you get a little pullback in Apple trying to be sold, if that thing can't get under lows in a half an hour or 15 minutes, then it's a long. It is a long, because I don't care, even though they're up this high, these things don't crash from all-time highs. They're just not likely to do that. If they can't make new lows early on and continue to make new lows, they just get bought back up. So on the flip side of that, if I woke up and Apple's down 3 and in a half an hour later it can't build any lower and it's just sitting down there, I'm more of a buyer as a trade only, day trading. I'm more of a buyer there than I am a shorter. I would no way chase that in the hole. That would just be suicidal to me. But watch these. Again, I don't know. Right now, it's just one of these periods, one of the more bullish periods I've ever seen in 20 years as a trader, where just things just melt and melt and melt. There's some individual opportunities out there, like we've seen Shop pull back, we've seen CMG pull back, we've seen Roku pull back, even though it had a really strong week this week. So you had those Momo names that were really popular early on. They finally pulled back. So at some point, these shall too, and we'll just have to watch them. Maybe we can catch them, maybe we can't. So anyway, guys, we'll leave it at that. See what we can come up with. If you need a little bit more detail, you want to see these trades work out live in a real-time environment, visit my trade room. Until then, trade well. Talk to you next week.